And here we are.
There he is.
Voila, Neil Wallace. So
Welcome.
welcome, Neil, to the show, to Gino's spot.
Welcome, Wallo. Nice to have you here.
Fantastic to have you here. And you know, we were just talking about just before about your running and your 15 comrades. I mean, that's a lot of comrades. One comrades is like hectic.
Were they consecutive?
Consecutive, yeah. 1 year I was sick, so I didn't even start I think it was my 13th comrades.
Really?
Right at the beginning.
13th. Well, that's
So
all
why
right.
did you take your temperature?
Makes sense.
That's exactly what happened. They took my temperature and they said
Well, at
that
least
I
he's
had-
taking it orally.
Yeah.
Jeez, Neil, that's a hell of an achievement.
And yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's good because I haven't even done one comrade. You like the long distances then?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, us ADD guys, we love long distance
Yeah.
stimulation and all the good things in life.
You're properly ADD.
Yeah,
as well.
for sure.
And what got you into it, Neil?
1984, I went to do my aviation medical at MMI in Pretoria.
Yeah.
And there was a colonel there who pulled me aside. He said to me, Neil, come and have a look at this. And he showed me a slide of my 3 medicals 3 years prior to that.
Yeah.
He said, another 5 years, you'll be done. You're too fat, you're too unfit,
Really?
you better go and do something.
Yeah.
So I just moved to Cape Town, the beginning of 1985, and I went to Second Wind running shop and I bought a pair of New Balance shoes.
Second Wind.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And bought a pair of shoes to run 1 Two Oceans, 1 Comrades Marathon.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'd go to Chapman's Peak and toss the shoes into the sea. But I managed the silver in the Two Oceans and the Comrades that
Wow.
year, and I thought, no, hang on. Let's go back to
Yeah.
Second Wind and buy another pair, which I did. And
Silver?
that went on, and that
Wow.
went on year after year. Joined RAC running club in Joburg, the magnificent running club in the country.
RAC. Okay.
Now, Rennie Welsh and Dick, and
Okay.
met up with Bruce Fordyce and a few other guys and did a lot of training with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, that is quick.
We
A
had
silver.
Bruce, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, 15 silvers in a row.
yeah,
Especially your first one, getting a silver.
Yeah.
I mean, was that your expectation?
no ways. I thought I'd just finish and go to Forries and have a couple of drinks. Yeah. So 15 years later, we went to Forries every year after Two Ocean.
And that colonel, did you
And,
send him a telegram or a little
No, I
message?
should have. But
Yeah.
when I lost about 18 kgs from when he told me I was going to lose my medical.
Did you ever
Okay,
see him
okay.
again?
So no, I never saw him again. Von Kron, Colonel Von Kron, that's right. Tag him.
But you know, the silver, let me tell you, Fires, that's like yeah, 5 minutes for the comrades, yeah, and for the silver, that's 4 minutes 17 for the Two Oceans. That's 456
No, that's
k's.
crazy.
Yeah.
And tell me,
Holy crap!
did you run your first comrades in 85
Yes.
until 2000?
In 2001, I ran my last one.
So you ran the Millennium Comrades,
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Durban
wow.
to Maritzburg.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Yeah,
we've
it
got
was-
fond
it was
memories of that.
amazing,
We were living in Durban.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That
it
was when
was a
we were
phenomenal
20.
experience. You know, as Johnny Halberstadt says, you live a whole life of emotions.
Yeah.
When you run comrades. From the morning when you get there, the excitement, it's cold.
Yeah.
You set sail down especially coming from Maritzburg to Durban, it's
Yes.
cold as you go down Polly's shorts, and then you get tired, and then the excitement of the crowds at Drummond, and then
Yeah.
you get sore and more excitement. When you run into the stadium, you think that you have arrived, and it's fantastic, and then you go to the Castle Lager stand and get a draft beer, and my family was there. And it was awesome.
And
And you go
Wallo?
back the next year.
Is it obviously through the comrades that you met Bruce Fordyce?
Yes,
Okay.
And that was
Yeah.
through the RAC?
yes.
And Johnny Halberstadt. as well.
I never actually met Johnny
Yeah, yeah,
Halberstadt,
yeah.
one of the greatest runners
Great, eh?
Yeah.
Great runner.
of Comrades Marathon.
It's Alan Robb and those guys.
We had Bruce
no.
on the show.
Yes, he was.
And what a fantastic guy.
Really cool guy, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know Bruce socially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He likes his red wine as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
And on with a beard as
One
well.
woman and some.
What a fantastic guy.
Yeah,
though.
great.
Okay,
guy.
let's go back now because I mean we need to look at all sorts of sort of sections of your life.
There's a huge agenda here.
Yeah. So let's go to the beginning. Where did you come from? Where were you born and
I
bred?
was a Joburg boy.
Joburg,
Yeah.
okay.
But we had deep Eastern Cape roots.
Okay.
My dad was a good mate of J.L.B. Smith from the J.L.B. Smith Institute in the 50s. I remember
East
him
London,
showing me
the
pictures.
Coelacanth.
The coelacanth man, showing me
yes.
pictures of him scuba diving in the Comores, collecting fish samples and making that famous book of J.L.B. Smith's.
Yes.
My mum was at Rhodes University.
Okay. What is she doing there then? What did she study?
She was a social worker.
Okay.
And then they moved to Joburg. My dad was an engineer.
All right.
But my dad also was a SAF pilot during the Second World War. So he went seconded to the RAF as a real
Royal
gentleman.
Where was he based? Yeah.
And he was eventually based, they went to North Africa initially, 1943, and then they moved him to Foggia in Italy.
Okay.
And he spent from 43 to the end of the war flying
in Italy.
Isn't it amazing? We actually touched
Bombing
on
my
this.
family.
We touched on this the other day. Isn't it amazing how often, if the father's a pilot, the son becomes a pilot? And there are a number of examples. I mean, right MP, the Davidsons,
Yeah.
Scully and Ellis Levine.
Well, we had numerous pilots at SAA, sons of captains.
Yeah.
They joined SAA.
Well, I suppose you kind of, because it's not a normal thing. It's not like, I mean, every kid wants to be a pilot, but you get obviously that you forget that when after you're 6 years old. So you know when when you decide I'm going to be a fireman or a pilot, but then after that, it's not a common choice for anybody. You know, I mean, at school there were one or two guys that would fly, but so it was your dad that got you in.
Well, you know, he was forever showing me pictures of the Second World War and bombing raids into Yugoslavia, but it was quite crazy how they would qualify with 250 hours, and straight away they'd be sent from South Africa to North Africa, and I think he went to Jerusalem to do his bomber conversion.
Okay.
And they're ready for battle, basically.
What's a bomber conversion?
He flew Wellingtons during the Second
Wellington
World War.
bombers.
The bomber, and with 300 hours, he converted onto the Wellington, 5-man crew, single pilot operation, no autopilot, night operations only, 100 airplanes at a time, used to fly over on bomber raids. They were told before every raid, okay, there are 100 of you sitting here, 20 of you won't be here tomorrow. And he said it was like that every single bombing raid.
But Waller, just as a matter of interest, and what fascinates me is, how did they actually see where they were in the formation, or didn't they?
I have no idea. I think I was too young when he told me. And he just showed me pictures of it and the stories that he told me. Bullet-ridden.
Your dad gone now?
He passed away about 18 years, 15 years ago.
Because it's so strange. You wish you could, as an adult now, where you're really interested in that stuff, right? You go back and speak to your dad about stuff. Always the case. I mean, it's such an interesting guy he must have been, you know.
Also one of the pioneers of scuba diving was J.B. Smith.
Okay. You say they dived in Mauritius?
Comores, I think.
Comores. Okay.
But in those days, I think conservation wasn't that high priority, because he showed me pictures where they blew up a reef and then went with a net with a little boat and picked up hundreds of fish, and then they spread them around on the deck of the ship. And
check at these
took
fish.
Photographs of these and then labelled them and put them into J.B. Smith's book.
Was that basically to try and get the coelacanth to the top?
No, I don't have anything to do with the coelacanth.
No, it's just any
I
ship.
think I'm right in saying that's where they found the first, or East London was the first coelacanth.
East London was.
Then they discovered the.
Actually, it came in a boat. I think it came in, the coelacanth came in on a fishing boat. But I mean, like you say, in those days, it was really, they were just looking for new stuff, so they just blow it up and then. There's lots around, don't worry about it.
It'll grow back.
Throw in the dynamite.
Very deep.
These days, the work brigade would be on it like a rash,
Jesus.
Yeah, so
Sure.
So you've got to obviously things have changed, but in those days it was rough and tumble,
It was
Folks were tough as well.
They were.
and Waller, just going back to the comrades now, just for interest's sake, what was your best time in the comrades?
6:26.
Would that have been in the early 90s?
It was in 80.
Because it's normally in the middle.
88, somewhere around there.
Oh,
It was
so
one of
soon
my,
after.
I think it was about my third comrades.
Soon after you began.
Yeah. And then, so I was in top 100 position at that stage. And then we had
It's a hell of
was
an
training with the
achievement.
right guys and training with Mike Arnolds and Mark Page and a few other guys. And, I always really wanted to get under 6 hours, maybe top 20 comrades, but I don't think I had the ability. It was too big. But look at all the guys that were running those sort of times around me. I was a 79 kg guy, and they were all 59 kg.
Yes, like Bridge Ford House, like a
then-
rake.
And then Gino's very good at this, the generic background questions. Am I right in saying he went to Roosevelt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we played cricket against a guy, a blonde-headed guy.
Neil Jurgensen.
Neil Jurgensen,
Right,
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
They went, Roosevelt was famous for its Dimension data boys, Jeremy Ord, Richard Kane, Doc Watson. They were a couple of years ahead of me.
Okay, at school then.
Yeah.
And ADD at school, so you didn't really enjoy it that much. You just enjoyed the break times and the
No, we
the social.
enjoyed the sport, the long distance running at school, the swimming, that sort of thing. Just wanted to get through. And then when my dad said to me, "Are you interested in becoming a pilot?" I was in standard 9, that's grade 11.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, we better jack up your maths marks." So it was extra maths lessons, no more rugby.
All right. Okay, so he put his foot down a little bit.
Yeah.
With that.
And there was no running at school.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
that's the point I was getting to.
Yeah.
Did you not run at school?
I did, yes.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, I was
And-
the cross-country champion in matric.
Okay, well,
Quite competitive.
yeah, trying to ascertain where the comrades...
Competitive oak. Like you don't, when you get going, you want to do something properly.
No, absolutely. No.
Yeah.
It's,
Because that's also an AZD thing, is in hyper focus. So do you pick a thing and then you're like, this is it
I'm
for
going to
the
focus and that's it.
Yeah.
And nothing must mess around with that.
yeah.
So,
And you get into it, but you get into it in a big way.
proper.
Yeah.
For how long though?
Well, it was 17 years that I was running.
Yeah.
But I mean, running brought a hell of a lot to my life and to my friends. I was made so many friends. I mean, you know,
I'm sure.
as hyperactive guys, we love friends.
Yes,
We love
Yeah.
drinking and parties and going
Yeah,
to different
of
places. And
course.
we went to so many different places
Socialise.
with running, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's good. Well, I mean, you know, Fires has used his cricket to enhance his network. It's been, I mean, I think Fires knows everybody in this country as well. It's like the same thing.
Not quite.
But
Listen, I must just tell you, excuse me, I'm only the barman here. I'm probably the most talkative barman, but I'm the barman.
Thank you. We always need one of those.
so if you need anything, just ask Fires. But okay, so school, obviously, doing a bit of running, a bit of sport there as well. Cricket and rugby and that sort of stuff as well. Also.
No. To bounce the ball and walk at the same time. No. Shoot older than me. No, I wasn't a ball sportsman.
So not a ball
sportsman. No, I could run.
Okay,
I could swim.
Right.
And,
Isn't it
so
amazing?
All sports, no.
All right. And then studies, or did you leave school and go straight into the army, or?
Well, I was lucky enough to be called up to go to the Navy for national service.
Navy. Okay. Well, there you go. I had a Navy shoot already. Yeah.
1978 went to Saldanha Bay for basics, but
Okay.
within a week I went to human resources. I suppose they called it that in the Navy, and I said I want to become a pilot in the Air Force. They say you must be crazy. You've got the easiest national service here.
Yeah.
Now you want to go to the Air Force? I said, well, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
So then during basics, they asked for, towards the end of basics, they asked for volunteers for the Navy divers course.
Okay.
And so a whole lot of us put up our hands. We want to go and dive, learn how to dive properly.
Yeah.
And they put us through all the rigmarole, selection process, and long underwater swims and long distance swims, and terrorizing us at diving school and psychometric testing and all that. And I passed that, and straight after basics, I went to Simonstown to...
Let me just interject if I may.
Yeah.
When you talk about the actual physical side of that course, you talk about long distance swimming and underwater swimming.
But that was just for the selection process. They wanted to see that you were able to do that.
So give us an example of how long or what sort of distance you'd have to swim.
Okay, I think they made us swim about 400 meters in the pool, and it was ruthless. They just said, okay, the first 20 guys, the fastest that could swim the 400 meters, right, you in, the rest of you go back to barracks.
Okay.
Jesus.
Right, and they take those 20 guys, there might have been more, and then we went down to Simonstown, and we had what they called second dickies there. They were like the corporal in the army.
Okay.
They were the previously qualified guys that were duck neck that used to come and shout at us. And they used to go to the Glencairn Hotel and get fraught, and then come back and and pull us out of beds, throw the beds over, make us swim in the sea. You know, during the selection process. And then once we were selected, they used to terrorize us non-stop for 10 weeks.
And the underwater bit, is that how long you can hold your breath for?
Yeah, I think they just wanted to see that you had the ability also not to get disorientated, because they made us swim through a part of the docks for our underwater test. But it was no big deal.
Yeah.
I was a good swimmer at school. And So,
but you wanted to do it. You wanted to do this as well, and obviously this is like something special there. So the diving. So was a diving. once you've done then you do the diving course after this? Or?
Yeah, then they put us onto a 2-week PT course. So all we did for 2 weeks was PT. Yeah, I don't know how much weight I lost. It's a magnificent six-pack. Yeah. And they used to take us day and night with logs, and we used to do what they called weight belt skinnies. So you'd have a speeder on, you put your weight belt on, they had a huge obstacle course in the sea in front of diving school, and you'd have to swim out to with the weight belt on, pull yourself up the ropes over the diving school, around the flag and around the diving school. It's went on and on and on.
Was all that
Cascades.
Yeah, was all that in the actual port or the dock, Simonstown Harbour?
In Simonsburg, yeah.
Okay. So you're basically running up and down the jetties and...
Yeah, and then they used to take us to the Admiral's Beach. That was just in front of the Simonstown station. And that small beach, it's not even as high as this window frame here, used to kill us.
Yeah.
Now, while you're doing PT and you've got a full wetsuit on with weight belt, snorkel and mask, and they come and pour sand down your mask while you're doing push-ups, on the beach with a snorkel and mask. Wonder how long you're going to last. And then they eased us into the diving, shallow water dives, jackstay dives along the Admiral's Beach at about 3 meters. But then the second dickies used to hover around us like vultures, and then they'd come zipping down and pull your mask off and turn the air off, and you'd have to pull your mate in and buddy breathe with your mate.
Okay.
It was very old-fashioned equipment. They had those French sets, aluminium French sets that were very heavy.
Okay.
And then they just extended that to deeper and deeper.
Like Jacques Cousteau. Jacques Cousteau sets.
Yeah, absolutely. With a twin pipe and no DV or anything.
So just to understand this though, while you were doing all this, you still wanted to be a pilot.
Absolutely.
That was your number one.
My application was in and was doing its doing there in Air Force headquarters.
So you completed the diver's course.
Yeah.
Did you do any diving stuff and were you in the Navy then you went Navy proper or what?
No, I qualified as a diver, and very shortly after I qualified, the OC, Officer Commanding Warren Steiger, he called me to his office. He said, "What the hell is this? Here's a signal for you to go to Air Force selection. I've just trained you as a Navy diver." I said, "Well, that's it. I put it in before I knew that I was coming here." And then 3 months later, I went to Air Force selection in Victoria.
So you stuck him one.
Yeah. I'm glad we touched on this topic, because when we go cracker fishing, Wallo, you can dive for the bait. Because I'm tired of doing that job.
Pearlies, you get caught with the pearl.
So you stuck it to Steiger, and then went up to join the Air Force.
I put it at Air Force College.
And were you already training to be a pilot before you got there, or now you wanted to train to be a pilot?
I had no flying experience.
No flying experience
whatsoever. You'd sit in the cockpit though.
I hadn't even sitting. No.
Oh really?
No.
So you
read books.
Probably used the army to get your stuff.
Absolutely.
Like a proper diver and
and use the military for your training.
Yeah, it's like I tell you. Okay, so then you did your pilot's course there then?
Well, the standard course in those days, it was 1978. Officers course first, and then you do 125 hours on Harvards. That old
Harvards.
D6.
Were they based here then, or were they
at Donato?
Where's Donato?
Yeah, next to Springs.
Springs.
Central Flying School, Donato.
Okay.
So we did 6 months there, and then we went to Longabon on the west coast to flight training school, FTS Longabon on Impala Mark IIs.
Yeah, but
Impala
how long is the Harvard segment or phase?
6 months.
6 months, and that's where you
actually
learn
7 months
as a complete greenhorn how to actually start that plane, taxi it, or take it down the runway and get it airborne.
Yeah, well, the most of it was theory. I think the first 3 weeks was all theory, aerodynamics, how a wing works, how an aileron flaps, all that sort of thing works. And then
tell us about the actual Harvards, because I love those planes. They are beautiful. I think Stu Davidson's got one, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure he has.
Yeah,
it's a solid chunk of metal with a
500. He's been flying around here of late.
It's got those. It slides. It's got that sliding
window.
Sliding window. Yeah. It's just the most magnificent looking plane. And so I mean, they have electric starts. What was the kind of vibe with the Harvard?
Yeah, you had to pump. It's such a long time ago. You had to pump the fuel and then hold the controls with your leg and then crank the engine, and you had a 550 horsepower engine.
Yes, it's huge. It's a
9-foot diameter prop, variable pitch prop.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a thing. You used to use, I think, 35 gallons an hour of fuel.
Jeez. 35 gallons an hour.
Oh,
How many liters in a gallon?
Three and a half.
Three and a half.
Three and a
Beg your
half
pardon.
gallons.
Yeah,
Liters
it's
per
like,
gallon.
Jeez.
That is very
800
Dors.
100 liters an
Like
hour.
us, fella.
No, so if you see one flying over, you must realize that the owner is just throwing $10 bills out the window. You know, that is incredible. But a very good trainer, and you had to nurse it. It could easily flick if it stalled. It didn't stall and then just lower its nose. It used to drop a wing, and you'd have to correct it and so on. But a big chunk of metal.
Difficult
Yeah,
to
really.
fly.
I don't know. It was the first aeroplane I learned to fly.
Oh,
on.
okay.
Yeah.
But on
I think now,
hindsight?
if you think in hindsight, yeah, it was quite a difficult airplane, quite a handful.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Very,
Any
very powerful.
difficult?
Lot of torque. You know, as soon as you apply power, it's got a lot of torque on the engine. and
Yes.
Ground loops
Radial.
on landing and ground loops on takeoff. You know, thing just suddenly spins around on the ground out of your control.
Crikey.
So basically, after the 6 months, you qualified now.
No. Then we went
Not-
to Longavan.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Then
And
you
we
did
did
the
this. We did the
jets.
next 125 hours on the two-seater Mark 1 Impala trainer, that silver one.
The
Remember
silver,
that?
the one that was stuck up here at the airport.
Like
yeah.
the one at
Yeah,
the
the one
airport.
at the airport.
Still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they
Well, they
were
shut
based
it
here
down.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Those
Yes, correct.
Impalas were based here, and so were the
I was
Harvards.
at 6th Squadron here. So
Okay.
I got my wings, and then I went to Petersburg and did the ground attack course
Yeah.
on the Impala Mark II, the single-seater, and then I took up a posting here in PE in 1980. So
And tell us about those planes, because this plane, Impala, was Italian plane.
it was an
Very
Italian-
much a beautiful plane. Tell us about the Impalas. Have you got a picture of an Impala there? Can you find one? Get it up. Just love those Impalas.
Yeah, no, it was a phenomenal little trainer. But we,
Yeah.
you know, afterwards we used to, because I, choose my words carefully, you know, I defected to helicopters after
I
18
see.
months.
The Pumas.
Well, I started on Alouettes at 16 Squadron here.
Why did you defect?
I did a couple of border tours, and
Okay.
you must choose where the biggest party is. And
Yeah.
Impala guys went to
Absolutely.
sleep early because they had serious work to do. And the chopper guys used to
Very
party
well
the whole
said.
night.
Very well said.
But also, the chopper guys used to go to some seriously interesting places and
Okay.
meet seriously interesting people. And
Okay.
there was a long-term thing because I knew that if I spent 3 years on Pumas in Joburg, in Pretoria,
Yeah.
there's a possibility of going to Cape Town on Pumas, and then I could do the ocean
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
Okay.
and do Antarctica, Marion Island, Gough Island, Tristan da Cunha, off the SA
Okay,
Gulls,
of course. Okay.
which actually materialized later on.
Wow. Okay, well let's go before you get there. Let's go back to these Impalas because they're beautiful planes. And what sort
Check
of
out.
power
He's
was
talking about it because it's an Italian
Of
plane.
course, Italian.
Check out some of these guys.
Look, it was extremely underpowered, and the
Okay.
ones that we were able to purchase. Look at arms embargo.
There we go.
There he is. Yeah.
Is that the
That's-
Mark
so what's that?
That's the Mark One. You see,
The
it's
Mark
got
One.
Single
two-seater.
seater. Two-seater.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the back seat, the instructor normally sat in the back seat, and he had
Yeah.
fixed controls with yours in the front. So when you were messing around, he could fix what you
Okay, so you got a one in the front.
Yeah, but
just like this L39 that Stu Davidson
Stu,
did.
yeah.
She was.
Dave Mandel.
But we had a lot of fun in that airplane. It was
Yeah.
very maneuverable. That's the Silver Falcons
There we go.
airplane.
Yes.
Do you remember a guy called Stevie York?
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I know Steve very well. Yeah.
Yeah, he was with the Silver Falcons.
Yes, he was, yeah. Extremely
Yeah.
good pilot. Yeah.
So and so you training that. Was it a nice one to fly as well?
It was very nice because when you applied power, there was no swerving around the runway like the Harvard when the torque effect took place.
Yes.
So it would go straight down the runway on takeoff. It was
Okay.
easier to land. It was faster.
Yeah.
I think Mach 0.8 was the maximum. Mach 0.78, somewhere around there.
Okay.
That's
So
of the-
700,
of the-
800,
of the
800K.
speed of sound. Yeah.
And G forces. What kind of G forces
Yeah,
did you experience?
6 plus 6 minus 2.
Jeez. Because I
We
mean,
used to wear a G suit.
a G.
So as soon as
what
you-
happens to the G suit? Is it air pressure, air or that
Yeah,
blows in
you
there?
plug it in and it's got a compressor, and
Uh-huh.
obviously it's linked to the G meter. And as the G meter goes up, this compressor pumps in and squashes your legs to stop the blood flowing down into your ankles. That's the idea.
Okay.
And Neil, had you stayed on the Impalas, what would you have progressed to?
Okay, that's
Mirages
exactly the
and so
point. I was
Yeah.
my next conversion was the flight leaders course,
on, which would have been
and
what
that is
plan?
the one also the Impala.
Oh, okay.
That you do now. You'd lead a formation into combat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then about a year or 18 months after that, you'd go into Mirage course.
Mirage was
Yeah.
the big Well, I
The
remember.
other fighters, the sharp nose.
Did you not ever have a dream or an ambition to fly a Mirage?
Oh yes, that's why I went to Impalas straight after after pilot's course.
Did you manage to fly Mirages?
In the back seat of one.
Oh, really?
But you know what? Funny enough, it looks as if it's so smooth. It is an incredibly uncomfortable airplane because it pulls such high G. That seat has got no padding on it.
Oh.
So also, if you had to eject with that Martin Baker ejection seat, you can't have a lag between the foam that's making your bum comfortable. Otherwise, you'll have an impact and damage your back. And a lot of the guys still damage their back, compressed vertebra and so on from ejections. But I did fly in one once, and it was sensational.
Yeah.
But
what kind of G's do you put in that Mirage then?
also about six. There might have been one or two more.
Okay, because it's just the G forces were just for me the G forces is just like insane. I couldn't get that. There's a Mirage.
Yeah, that's the Mirage.
Do you remember they had a program on TV called Mirage?
I do remember.
It was dubbed. It was dubbed from French, I think.
Correct.
And it was like,
Quite
wow, the coolest dudes surely riding the Mirages.
Yep.
And so you saw combat as well then.
I did. 8 years on helicopters in Angola.
Wow.
I saw a tremendous amount. I prefer not to really talk about it. Maybe it's best that we keep away.
You and I have
from
got to
that
get home tonight.
But went to some incredible places and met some amazing people that did amazing things, and they were still really good mates of mine to this day.
And any stories with the jets or the Pumas? I mean, I'm sure there must be stuff. Any
well, it depends if you want to talk about the military stuff or Antarctica or
Antarctica sounds.
Let's just understand what took you to Antarctica.
Okay, from I think it was 1980 was the first time Department of Transport bought 2 J model Pumas. Those orange, white and blue. We used to call them yellow, blow Pumas. But so they were exactly the same as our Pumas, with a couple of extra things like extra icing.
Oranje, blanje, blauw.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Gary could see his shorts when he got knocked out by John Tate.
Gary might have a picture of it, but
I did send Gary a picture of it, if I'm not mistaken.
Look, I knew that the 30 squadron was our squadron in Easterplaat, and the Department of Transport bought 2 of these, but it was arms embargo, apartheid regime. They couldn't sell it to the Defence Force.
Okay.
So they sold it to DOT, but we were flying the same Pumas. So we were trained.
Okay.
We had all the technical skills.
Yes.
So it was obvious to give it to us, but
Yeah.
through the back door. And they were kept in our hangar, and we weren't allowed to tell anybody. So whenever we did the Marion Island, Gough, Tristan da Cunha, Antarctica, we had plain overalls, no insignia.
Yes.
But a lot of the guys that spent the year in Antarctica or Marion Gough didn't want to go to the army. And they knew exactly who we were.
Yes.
So
And at this stage, did you have rank? You must have had some major.
yeah, I was a captain,
Captain, okay.
But we did some phenomenal trips down there.
On the Gullis.
On the SA Gullis.
That's all the weather related stuff then. So just in the Kuna, is that what?
Scientific research.
Is it okay?
Professor Best, we took him from the Mammal Research Institute in Cape Town. We took him twice, once to Gough Island, and we'd spend hours looking for certain types of whales around Gough.
Okay, and the helicopters, okay.
Yeah, so we'd fly around. But
So you take off from the Gullis though?
yeah.
And then how far would you have to
So
fly?
let's go back to the Gullis. How would we get onto the ship?
Yeah.
Well, the ship would be steaming along near Robben Island, and we'd fly onto the ship. You hover next to the heli deck. You land on the ship, fold the blades back.
There we go.
Yeah, there's a J model Puma.
Wow.
That's on the back of the SA Gullis as well.
Okay.
So you'd fold the blades
Yeah.
and tie them onto the tail boom, and then push it into the hangar, and it could take 2 Pumas.
Okay. So the blades went together.
All 4 blades fold up
fold
over the
together.
tail boom, and then you'd push it into the hangar, chain it down, because the SA Gullis didn't have, it was an ice separator, not an ice breaker.
Okay.
So it didn't have stabilizers like normal ships have to stop it from rolling.
Yes.
Because if you go into the pack ice in Antarctica, it would have just broken those veins or fins, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So especially down near Marion Island and Gough, when the sea was rough, that thing used to roll all over the show. So you'd come into the harbour next to the ship, and you'd wait for the FDO, the flight directing officer. He had those round bats like
the pedals.
and he would sit and monitor the swell out to sea. So we'd hold the bats up, and now you're sitting hovering, looking at him. There's the front of the ship, hangers right here. And then when he saw the set is over 9 or 12 waves or whatever, then he would direct you in, and you'd come whipping over and land on the ship. And the ground crew would come running in with chains and chain it down.
Immediately.
So when the next set of waves came through, it didn't fall over.
And just as a matter of interest, I mean, that is deep in the Southern Ocean. What sort of swells did you encounter there at worst?
No, it was crazy. We had we had rolls of 48 degrees. It went past halfway on the ship. And one of our trips to Antarctica, we spent 3 days going northwest to go into the waves because we weren't able to navigate straight down to the South Pole.
Yeah.
So we lost 3 days just going in, up and down in this.
With a swell. You were going with a swell.
No, we were going into the swell.
Into the swell, northwest.
Yeah, instead of going southwest, we were now heading northwest. It was crazy. Everything used to get thrown around on the ship.
Jeez, and to land on that thing must be hectic.
Okay, but no, you don't fly in those conditions. So you have very strict restrictions. If it is rolling more than 8 degrees, I forget what the restriction was.
Then no ways, okay.
Yeah, then there was no flying.
Okay. And any stories from the helicopters? We were talking about a rescue.
I was going to say the rescue.
Yeah, I want to hear the story about the rescue. What was that to do with? Was that in the military? Was that in the?
Okay, now this is a story and a half.
Yeah.
Man, we used to do work off the SAS Tafelberg, which is the Navy's replenishment ship.
Yes.
Now, it was a 20,000 ton ship. It was 170 meters long.
Okay.
And in the middle of the ship, they had modified this ship to be able to accommodate 2 Puma helicopters behind each other. Bridge was just in front of us, bow that side, hangers at the back.
Yeah.
So we did a sea rescue exercise. Obviously, you have to go and practice to lift somebody off a stricken boat, or put somebody or take some freight onto a ship that's out to sea.
Yeah.
So, but we thought we'll go and do this at night. So we put 2 Pumas onto the Tafelberg. We were 50 k's to the west of Longabon on the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
And we had to, for some reason or other, do it at dark moon, no moon. So it was pitch black.
Pitch black. Okay.
Airborne, if you didn't have instruments to reference on, it'd be like flying inside a squash ball, a black ball.
Yeah.
The sea was ink black. And then you'd have a procedure, we'd go out to a small vessel, and with the hoist of the helicopter and the assistance of the flight engineer, you would hover on the side of the ship and then lower the strap down, pick the so-called injured person up, or drop somebody on the ship. That was all practicing. Okay. So the first time you did it in anger, it wasn't new.
Yes.
So that night, we came back and we landed on the ship. Now, on the side of the helipad, you had these frames with nets on it. Okay. So that when we weren't doing that flight operations, the nets were vertical, so people wouldn't fall off.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the heli deck
was straight.
Was 50 feet above the sea. So it's 15, 17 meters. It was a long way down.
Yeah.
So we came in, we'd finished flying, trained the 2 Pumas down. We were sitting in the bridge chatting to the captain. I think it was Captain Green in those days. Our flight engineer, a chap called Hein Buxman, fortunately he was first team rugby for Air Force. He was a Frostboer.
Yeah.
He was standing there in those green flying overalls that we had. He didn't have a life jacket on. He had his hands in his pocket and he had his 1 foot on the heli deck and 1 foot on one of the ropes.
Oh, Jesus.
And he was watching the ground crew spraying the helicopters down with fresh water, because that's the procedure.
Yes.
When you come into the hover next to the ship, you have a recirculation of the salt water, and it's very corrosive. And multi-million rand helicopters, that was the way they
don't like that.
Next minute, Hein puts a bit of his prop forward weight on the rope, and he breaks that rope, and he fell into the sea.
Oh,
now picture this. You've got this ship that's cruising at 8 knots.
Yeah.
So 15 k's an hour.
In the dark.
In the dark, 50 k's west of Saldanha.
Jeez,
We're sitting there having a cup of coffee with the captain, and next minute somebody came running in and said, man overboard, man overboard. Wow. So they ran out, they took one of those big orange rescue loops, they threw it out overboard.
Yes.
We ran out and said, take those chains off that chopper. Take the chains off. Oh, jumped in the chopper, flicked all the switches, started the thing up, got airborne. But now the ship has gone into a starboard turn. But a 20,000 ton ship
takes a long time.
Forever to turn around.
Yeah.
Are you going to find this bloke?
Exactly. So now we're getting disorientated because the ship is moving, but we know he's over there somewhere. You know? So we get airborne, fly around, but as soon as you get close to transition, slowing down above the water, the circulation of the rotor blades brings spray up all over the cockpit. So, and also you got a little toggle switch on the collective to move the landing light around. There was just so much reflection, and so we called back to the ship and said, listen, put a boat in the water. There's no ways we're going to find them.
Okay.
So the Navy had these Delta boats. It's a big square thing they used to put so-called Marines on and go onto the beach with these things. They had 230 horsepower Johnson engines. And
Lordy, okay.
So they got the derry crane with 2 Navy guys on this ship, on this boat, and they flung the derry crane. So the boat is now ready to be lowered into the sea.
Yes.
And the cable that was holding the transom snapped. So now this boat dropped vertically. Now this is the process. Now this ship is still turning. We back on board by then.
Okay.
There's 2 Navy guys screaming like banshees, holding onto this boat. Get us onto the boat! Get us onto the boat!
Yeah.
Which they did. They eventually pulled it up. But we had some special forces guys on the boat. They called them Barracudas boats. They had 250 horsepower even reach engine on. 6-meter boats. This thing, they just swung it out like this. With these 2 special forces guys on it, they dropped it into the water and they disappeared into the darkness. Also, which way? This is like 15 minutes later.
It's in the middle of the ocean.
They disappeared. The guys could just hear those 2 engines.
Do you think they knew where they were going, or did they just take
They
a
had no idea. Potluck.
Jeez.
They closed the engines, they closed the throttles, they turned the engines off, and there was Heinbachsman in the water. They grabbed hold of him and they pulled him onto the boat, just like that.
Yes.
Where were you now? Still airborne?
No, we were on the ship.
Oh, so you had...
we went 5 minutes in the air. We
So you were back, you had landed.
So,
man, because that is a scary
I said to Heine, what? He said he drowned once. He went under and he thought, no, stuff that, I'm going to swim to the surface. And then he drowned again and he swam, and he said, as he swam got to the surface, they pulled him out the water.
No ways.
But his core temperature was so low. So they sped back to the ship, put him in the hospital in the boat, and the next morning we flew him to Tumel Hospital. A month later, he resigned, left the Air Force.
How far were you from land?
50 k's.
Oh, 50 k's.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said that. What about that award? There was an award floating around.
Oh, there we go. Yes, the green endorsement. Tell us about the green endorsement.
Okay, there's a bit of more of a story to that. I was the project officer at 30 Squadron and appointed the man who was in charge of inventing airborne firefighting with a helicopter in 1986.
Okay.
So we built a 2,000-litre fiberglass tank, and I had to devise the whole flight profile, what height the water must be released at, how fast you must be going at, and so on. And it took us about a year and a half to get the whole project off the ground. We did funny things like we put cans, hundreds of cans, on poles in a long line on the grass next to the runway. And I used to fly over and drop this 2,000 litres, and we'd measure how much water was in each can. How primitive was that? And then the next time I tried a little bit higher, emptied them all out, try them a bit higher, until we got to the optimum speed, optimum height.
Wow, okay.
Now that particular award, there was a huge fire in Franschhoek area. And it was on a Friday afternoon at about 4 o'clock. Officer commanding came running and he said, Neil, take that Puma, we need more fuel to go for the other aircraft firefighting. So we put 10 200-litre drums of fuel in the back of the Puma, and we jumped on board and we shot, and we were going up the Franschhoek Valley. And next minute, all hell broke loose. Those helicopter blades of the L model had been manufactured at Atlas, not by the French. The Boere decided they're going to make
it. So
you had a lot of balance weights right on the end, on the blade tip. Now you remember that blade tip almost goes supersonic. It can't go supersonic because it'll change its... So a 4-kilogram weight at the end of a huge blade like that, this piece came flying off, came out of the end of it, So that helicopter just started shaking as if it was going to break into pieces. So I dumped collective, I turned around. Now there's mountains either side. There was a rugby field over there. No, not going to make the rugby field. And there were a whole lot of lines between the vineyards. And I picked a line and went, whoop, plugged this thing into the vineyard. And when we went back the next day to go and look for that piece. Took 200 troops from.
Oh, really?
To take us to look for it. And it was the only vineyard in that entire valley that didn't have creosote poles it was holding up. Otherwise, we would have minced into those poles. So they flew out another blade, landed on that rugby field that I missed, put the new blade on, and we flew it back to Aston. And then
so you didn't damage it?
And then we went to Forings.
How unusual. Just a
proper helicopter crash.
It was a proper crash without breaking anything. Hurting anybody.
But I've heard that you get those special landings where you just let it flip or
auto-rotate.
What's
you do that only when something's very wrong.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay. Indeed, yeah.
Right. So,
tell me a story. Fixed wing versus a helicopter. Which is more difficult to fly?
You can't compare it. It's like, is it more difficult to play cricket or rugby? That sort of thing. Very different.
Well, I thought it was like playing drums or because you got to do all the different feet and your hands and your things.
See, my lack of ball skills. I used to fly helicopters. You use your bum and your feet.
Well, you see, now we talk about ball skills.
Yes.
Should we move on to golf for a moment? You can't say. I mean, I know you're hitting a stationary ball, but let's just dwell on this record that was broken at Humewood.
Yeah, just the
I just wanted to find out, did you play all 18 holes? You're only 16.
No, look, let me be totally honest with you. I will never be a good golfer. I don't have the skills for it. I practice so hard at my golf. But on that particular day, all the stars were aligned.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of guys with me that were helping me. Okay.
Footy Malherbe.
Great
partner, great guy.
One cup right. And fortunately, on all the par threes, I got a birdie on all the par threes.
Okay.
I didn't even know what I'd done. Ben Ferreira came to me. He said, "Have you any idea what you've just done?" I said, "I don't know." So what,
Yeah.
But I came out of the change room and Dave Dalton, lovely man.
Tabs, we know him well.
Tabs Dalton. Yes. He walks up to me and he says to me, "Young man, enjoy the moment because you'll never do it again."
So it's never been done before?
No, it's been done twice before.
Oh,
I was a third
Diane Wallace says, "Oh God, no, not golf. We'll be here all night." Diane, we need to get you on the show sometime too about the game park, the Crocodile Game Park, which is an amazing asset to PE.
And sorry, just a matter of interest now, going back to that 4 birdies,
on the
do you know who were the 2 previous guys who did?
Patrick Ruhr was one.
Oh, we know him well.
Yeah, you know
Paddle
Patrick.
tennis man.
And there was another guy with a double-barreled Afrikaans surname.
Recently?
No, quite a while ago.
Okay.
And I don't know when Patrick did his. I think also about 4.
And he shot 60, yeah?
Net 60.
Net 60.
Net 60. I mean, that's that's
you
insane.
see.
I don't know if there's any other
modesty.
comments. I see Casey Clark. Casey, we need some more punters. Yeah, we run out.
We haven't looked at the comments yet.
I know, we haven't even looked at the comments. Listen, Brendan Kelly. How's it, Brendan? It's been a while. Looking forward to a high-flying show tonight. Yes. And he's doing it. Brendan, your motor mouth is looking fantastic. He's putting so much work into that motor mouth thing that he's doing online as well. If you guys want to keep up with motorsport, Brendan's your guy to
follow.
Hello,
Knack.
There we go. There's Casey Clark.
Knuckle.
Fire's looking very neat this evening. Just put his hands in his pocket. The arms are like windmills. That's what gave it.
They're busy, Knack. They're busy.
That's what gave it all. And he said, I know that he always calls you Casey. Always Pontius Pilot. Pontius Pilot. Dave Morton. Where's Niels Frosty? He's got one right.
Hello, Mort. Are you back in South Africa?
Yeah, let us know where you are, Dave.
And how's your Achilles?
Ray Hizeroth, how's it, Ray? Nice to see you as well, watching.
Raymond.
Welcome, Neil. Of course, Ray, SAB, always SAB.
Casey. Hello, Knack.
Nice to see our pilot, Pontius. Here we go, what a chopper. Interesting stories. Keep rise. That's Miranda Ferreira. Hello, Miranda. So of ECM, it's East Cape Motors as well. I think it's it's not Miranda. That Miranda. It's another Miranda. Keith, there we go. Comrades years. What? As far as your backyard, the whole of Russia is there. The vodka was flowing.
Yeah, no, we had
of the Russian people coming.
You'll remember the Millennium Comrades. We had number 1, 2, and 3.
Oh yeah, the Russians.
And I think the second or third woman at a house for a bride on the Saturday night. the night after the Comrades. It was run on a long weekend.
Did they drink any beer?
Jesus, he'll tell you. He'll tell you. I had a
They're
5
Russian
litre.
twins, eh? Remember the
John
Russian
Wallen.
They didn't pitch up.
There's John Wallen is out as well. John, the legend.
In fact, just keep John Wallen there for a moment.
Yeah.
Hello, Johnny.
Yeah.
There's a man we got to get on the show.
Yes,
He's
I
a
think
PE
John,
boy as well.
We've got to have you on.
Johnny Wallen.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm very, very sorry to hear that your mate there is up on a sexual assault charge after pleading. I'm referring to Wackhead catching Johnny Wallen.
Oh, wicked.
What a great performance!
Oh, my
But there's
soul.
a guy we got to get on the show.
Mike for Mark. How's it, Mike? Nice to see you there as well.
Mike.
That's
Hello, Mike.
VP boys there coming in. And
He was at the table on Friday.
Yes,
Lovely
he was,
guy.
okay, yes, he's
guy.
retired now as
So
well.
he's back again. Hello, Nuck.
Sing the Chopper Boys song for everyone. It's the Chopper Boys song.
No, hang on. There's two things that, or people when they're not good at, they don't do it.
Oh, right.
I don't dance or sing.
Oh, right. Okay.
You should
Yeah,
say
I
that
don't
about the
like the
dancing, but
coordination.
I
Don't like that
can't
stuff.
do that either.
Terence Wilson. Hey,
Hello.
how's it, Terence? How you doing? Nice to have you online as well, man. And Darren Green, Magnificent Memories there, Marion Island, Koch and Tristan de Cunha. Those are names that we used to hear such a lot of in the old days as well.
You mentioned the Green earlier. Was it Captain Green? Is that Captain Green?
Overwintering. No. We'd make great use of the helicopter service providers during our overwintering trips.
I must tell you,
So
I must tell you the story what happened at Gough Island.
Yes.
Gee, but that was crazy stuff. So myself and my good mates, in fact, all my helicopter mates are my brothers. We got a brotherhood.
Okay.
Yo.
Because when you work with people like that, you
Yeah.
become close. You know?
And especially in the Angolan war, they were buddies. Eh?
Yeah.
So we go to
As John Clee said, don't talk about the war. You're not going to get past Tony Cliff.
Yeah.
Don't talk about the war. You want to get home.
But it's true, obviously, in a situation like that, it's even, in a military situation, it's even more hectic. I mean, you see how the Americans are with their stuff as well.
No, absolutely.
And to
but
this day, they're my
I'm sorry, I interjected.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. But don't talk about the war.
Two of us flew onto the SA Gullis and off we steamed October 1985.
Okay.
We went to Gough Island and Tristan da Cunha. That was one trip.
Okay.
But it was mainly to take the new team down, replace the team that had spent the year there, fly guys like Dr. Peter Best around the islands.
Okay, mammals, scientists.
Mammal research. We took some ornithologists there.
Okay.
Pete Ryan, who was actually one of the authors of the Roberts Bird book. We took him to Inaccessible Island so he could do his PhD on
Inaccessible Island.
Inaccessible Island.
You
Just
accessed it.
you can only get there by helicopter. You can't get there by
Okay.
boat. It's a core of rock that comes up. But there's a little bird that lives on that island called an inaccessible rail. Flightless bird. And
Flightless.
we left him on that island for 3 weeks to study that bird. And he wrote his thesis on that bird. But while we were at Gough Island, we were standing on the heli deck the one day, and Bill Leith, who was the captain of the SA Gullis, SA Barbalas. He used to be a commander of a Navy minesweeper.
Yeah, okay.
And I cannot give you the accurate reason why he was
On the Algarve.
thrown out of...
Oh, right. Oh, dear.
We heard that he took a minesweeper and hit a concrete block in the Simonstown Harbour, and this minesweeper sank, that he was discharged from the Navy.
Liquor had nothing to do with
I
it.
don't want to go into further details. And he joined Department of Transport. He was initially the first mate on the SA Gullis, and eventually became the captain of the Gullis. But he was a brilliant ship's captain, especially in the ice. We had all the faith in the world in him. Socially,
Only concrete block he was practicing.
Okay.
people skills?
People not know zero people skills.
Zero.
Okay.
None.
Right.
Nada. But he didn't.
You get those guys. It's cool.
The captain was isolated. He had his own captain. He never used to come down and fraternize with us.
Yeah.
But the one day he wanted to pump diesel onto the island at Gough.
Oh.
He thought it was a good idea to unravel this pipe. It's about a 4 or 5 inch diameter plastic pipe.
Yeah.
Put floats on it, put the stopper on the end, and pressurize it to see if there were any holes in it. So he pressurized this thing. We were watching this lot. Next minute, the stern of the ship started turning like that, and all of a sudden that pipe must have been 500 meters. Suddenly came racing towards the ship, at a mean rate.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he'd whiz round the propeller.
Oh,
There was diesel everywhere,
Oh, my
all
God.
over the sea. And I'll cut a long story short. He didn't like us military guys on the ship at all.
Yes.
He came to Kevin, Viljoen and myself. He said, "We've got a problem. The ship is now stricken. Yeah, we're 1,000 miles from Cape Town.
Yeah.
To get a rescue crew out here will be terribly expensive."
Yeah.
We had our
Divers.
I had my diving.
Diving.
I had my Navy diving stuff with
Yeah.
me.
Oh, okay.
Viljoen had his civilian diving stuff. We wanted to do some social diving there because it's a volcanic island.
Yes.
The visibility's pristine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And it's full of fish, but it lots of sharks as well.
Well, now some
Is it
deep
lots
Down
of
down in
crayfish?
the Antarctic.
No, this is halfway to Antarctic.
Oh, halfway.
If you take a line from South America, sort of Rio to Cape Town, it's about halfway.
Okay, is that
Yeah.
Tristan da Cunha and Goff Island around there?
Tristan and Goff about
Okay,
halfway.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
cut a long story short, they put a big barge into the water, lowered us down onto this barge with our aqualungs, and we dived, but we went through all the air that we had, and we didn't even take off half the pipe.
Oh, my
Mm.
So the next day, they'd modified some high-pressure bottles that were used for firefighting. And they were able to fit the demand valve onto
No
them.
ways.
So we had a little bit more air, but not as much as we had with our original twin six.
Yes.
So we went down, used up all that air. And then I went to Bill Heath and I said, "Look, I think I've got a plan here.
Yeah.
I will dive down. I'll see which way you must rotate the prop.
Yeah.
We'll connect that pipe to a block and tackle on the ship's deck. And then you must tell the engine room to rotate the prop through 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And this took a good 2-3 hours.
And
Up
Bill,
and down,
90
up
degrees.
and
And Bill, by the way, when you get back to Cape Town, fired.
So
he was looking over from
So a
the
little bit
captain's
by little
cabin.
bit, like 90
Yeah.
degrees.
Yeah.
90 degrees.
Yeah.
90
The whole
degrees.
time we're looking for sharks and and seeing that the prop was going the right way, and eventually, patang, the last bit of the rope came off. The last bit of the pipe came off. Well, that night, Kevin and I were invited to the captain's cabin for dinner, which had never happened before.
He saved his life.
So it was very stern and formal in his
Yes.
thing, but it didn't take long to unfriend him. So about 3 or 4 nights later, we were having a braai on the heli deck, all the Air Force guys, and Bill Heath sneaked up on us while Kevin and I were demonstrating to the ground staff, the corporals and sergeants, how to use the SA Agulhas plates as frisbees and throw them into the sea. But that's not where it ended.
Yes.
The funny part of it was, when we arrived back in Cape Town, this is the funniest thing ever, we were all just off Robben Island. So now, we arrived there about 5 in the morning, and the crew that had spent the year on the island,
Yeah.
as well as the shipborne scientists, they decided to have an all-night party.
Oh.
Pilots had to go and sleep because we were going to take off the next
Yeah,
morning.
of course.
Yeah, that must have burned your ass, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Go to
no,
sleep.
no, but we'd been partying with them for 6 weeks already. So they were giving us all the advice on the heli deck, pistols and newts.
Yes.
We unfold the blades, put our kit in, we fly off. So Kev says to me, "Oh, come on, traditional, let's give them a beat up, fly past."
Okay.
So we came hauling past the heli deck, 130 knots. The whole lot of them gave us a brown eye, except one. And that was the lady scientist who gave us 2 fried eggs. Hello. So we thought, no, that's no good. Let's go and give them a bit of our medicine. So we flew around the ship.
Yeah.
We came in past the heli deck. I said to Blaise Besaidon, to our flight engineer, "Blaise, take your overall off. Yeah, right as we come abeam it, open the sliding door on the Puma and stick that white cracker of yours out the door." Which he did. And there was great flippin' laughter. But we air taxied past the ship, and next minute I looked to my left, there was Bill Heath looking at me. His eyes were as big as a freshly raped owl's eyes. They were that size. And below him, cabin below it, was the mother-in-law of the administrator of Tristan da Cunha.
Oh, my
And her
word.
eyes were as equally as
Ah, my God.
so we flew past, we landed at Esterplaat. Colonel Breitenbach walks out to the airplane. This must have been 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
But there was no smile on his face.
I'm sure
Something
not.
had happened. But what had actually happened, Bill Heath got hold of the chief of the Air Force.
Yeah.
Told him the story. He radioed or phoned Brigadier Stegman, who was the OC, officer commanding of Southern Air Command. And he had phoned Brady and said, "Listen, those 2 bloody chopper pilots are there."
And a cock.
So he walked up to us, he says, "Welcome back, the 2 of you, tomorrow morning 8 o'clock in my office in your full blues, and you have a shave as well," because we hadn't shaved for 6 weeks. So there we arrived in our full blues the next morning. He said, "Right, If you flash a brown eye at a bachelor party, that's quite funny. If you flash a brown eye on Parliament stairs, that's not funny. And that's basically what you did. All the good that you did, diving that pipe off the prop, is now null and void.
Oh, it's done.
7 extra duties, including Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. Off you go.
Oh, wow. So you gave me extra.
Yes, but a year later, they decorated both of us with the Southern Cross medals.
Wow, okay.
For rescuing the ship.
So is that what that certificate was about?
No, that
I
was,
beg your
that, was
pardon,
a,
sorry.
that was a flying...
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Flying.
But now,
Yeah,
So was it Silver Cross?
Southern Cross.
Southern Cross. Okay. And 'cause, I mean, it's crazy. At that time, in the military, there was a lot of stuff, you know, and I always just remember, you know, the in Angola with the riflemen, this and the thing, the lists of guys that have died on the border. It's just, you know, it's another world now.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it now. I mean, the defense.
have
was
you ever
now
come
different.
close to that?
Yeah. I mean,
Or what is the closest?
close?
you've come?
What's the closest you come to dying, to death?
Can I tell an external story?
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure.
Okay.
Just don't mention the war.
No, but it is in the war.
Yeah, it's fine.
Well,
it's fine. Of course,
Okay,
no.
but you can read about it in any magazine, in any of the
Sure.
big border wars.
Yeah.
We had an Ops Meerbos. It was in July, August, September 1982.
Yeah.
And we had 8 Pumas that were flying into Angola every day, moving parabats around to try and intercept the swabbateurs and the whatever, Roy Gevaar. Those days were
Roy Gevaar,
brainwashed.
Absolutely, yeah.
That one particular day, 9th of August, we had 8 Pumas, and we were all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 8. The day before that, I was number 5 in the formation. That particular day, the leader of the formation asked John Twaddle to move to number 5, and he moved me to number 7. And we were all full with parabats, and I looked at John Twaddle's helicopter, and I said to him on the radio, John, you've got a C model Puma, which was the weakest of the 3 Pumas that we had.
Yeah.
How many parabats have you got on board?
Yeah.
He came back and he said, no, I've got 14. I said, no, I've got an H model. I've got 12. You send 2 of your guys to my chopper. So we're all rotors were running, ready to get airborne. 2 guys jumped out of his Puma, came running up, jumped into my Puma, and we got airborne. And 12 minutes later, he was shot out of the sky.
Jeez.
A whole battery of anti-aircraft hit him. I saw this Puma pitching up, rolling over, bursting into flames, and crashed into the trees right in front of me.
Man.
And we turned around, landed.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were no survivors.
Yeah,
terribly
it's just
cool.
I mean, it's a different world. That,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Totally. And I don't know how a lot of the guys in my age group, it's sort of everything had died down. You know, the whole Angola War, everything. But through the 80s, 70s, 70s and 80s, it was hectic. And you know, you're told to fight for your country, you go. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
no questions.
I think I'd prefer not to go any further with it because there were a lot of other things.
Well, whilst on that subject, so here you are, you've flown Impalas, you've now got into helicopters, you've had a nice jaull there in the Southern Ocean and various other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Was there any thought at that moment in time that you'd one day fly for the airline?
Oh no, that was the.
Oh, so that was
also
that
the
the
I had
plan?
a long-term plan. That's why I went to
Okay.
Impalas first because SAA didn't employ pilots without 500 hours on fixed wings in those days.
Okay.
So I made sure that I had 500 hours on fixed wings, and then I went to helicopters.
Okay.
With
But
the
the fixed-
vision
Yeah.
of at the end of my 10-year contract going to SA.
Okay, so let's move on to the airline now, if you don't mind. So you've flown a Harvard, you've flown an Impala. So what do you have to do now to get into the airline?
Well, you have to have an airline transport pilot's license. Well, you had to have a commercial license.
Commercial
So that
license,
was- If you had a airline transport pilot's license, which was just a number of hours, a number of night flying hours, and so on. And I had that, and I accumulated those hours on helicopters.
Yes.
But I had a twin helicopter because the Puma had twin engines.
Okay.
But the big advantage was that it was a multi-crew helicopter.
Okay.
And the selection board at that stage, in the end of the 80s, wanted multi-crew operators.
Yeah.
So because now you're in a closed environment and you can communicate with other guys, and you know how to work with people.
Okay.
And that was their motivation in those days. And
So, sorry, I beg your pardon, carry on there.
just before the end of my flexi service contract in the SAF, I applied to go to SA.
Okay. So you moved to SA
So
after
I
that.
was still in the Air Force, took leave, did my commercial license.
Where did you go for your commercial license? PA?
Aeronav Academy at Rand Airport.
Oh,
It's a big jump from a small plane into this 747 or whatever. What did you start out with?
We started on as what they call them boy pilots, the third pilot in the crew.
Okay.
You were just the gopher.
Okay.
But you had wings and you had 2 thin little bars. You got 3 bars there, so you were a senior first officer.
No, this might be the Navy. I don't know.
You had to, as a boy pilot, you had to clean the cockpit and give the Jefferson plates to the pilots, and you were the general dog's body. You weren't allowed to touch anything.
All right. Okay.
No.
Don't touch that stuff.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And put white gloves on at night so they can see where your hands are. You don't touch anything. But not quite. But
Okay.
So,
we had a lot of fun.
Wallo, sorry, just to understand this. So you've gone to do your commercial pilot license now.
Yeah.
So what did they train you on initially?
Well, I went onto a little Cessna and did my commercial license on a Cessna.
Okay, so you started on a Cessna.
Yeah, but I was still in the Air Force when I was flying the Cessna. Just to do my
Okay, so but then you were Gopher and you were doing Cessna at the same time.
No. I did the Cessna first.
Oh,
that got me into SA.
Into Gopher.
I had to have that license to get into SA.
Then how did you get to start flying then? I mean,
No, then they put you in the simulator.
Oh, okay.
And the SA,
This is the
in
point
those
I wanted
days,
to get to.
in the 80s, SA was
Proper
a
airline.
really proper, strict as
Great
all
airline.
hell airline, yeah. And the training section was top class, and they invented all sorts of low visibility approaches, which the world eventually adopted after that.
Okay.
Yes.
But so they put us on to the international for 2 years, so that you could learn the whole etiquette in the cockpit, and but we would fly to different destinations all the time.
Yeah.
Had lots of fun in those
And
days.
then how long does it take you to qualify? Or how many hours do you need before you can
No, it's not
drive
an
that thing yourself?
No, it's not an hours thing. It's
Not?
SA and most of these big airlines, it's a big sausage machine. So as soon as the guy dies at the top,
Next one
the
comes
worm
in.
moves up.
The worm goes up.
And
Okay.
there's
do
no
you not-
messing with the seniority system.
Okay, so one goes out, and the next one comes in, basically.
Correct.
But
That's
how
how
long-
it used to work in the old days.
Okay.
So how long then did you have to train for before you moved up the sausage machine?
Okay, I joined in '89. In 2003, I became a captain on the domestic. So I spent
89
yeah
to
1980
2003.
Yeah, and that's about average, eh?
So what did you do for those 14 years?
I spent a good number of years on the domestic flying Boeings and Airbuses.
Okay, but
as a first officer.
so from 89,
Yeah, I was
before-
flying all the time.
before you controlled a Boeing on your own, how long from 89 or?
Oh, no, as soon as you finished your boy pilot stint, then you would be trained up as a co-pilot on the domestic.
Okay,
And
okay.
then you'd still fly.
You
with
can
it.
fly, but
Yeah.
you're
But you had a
co-pilot.
guy with 4 bars sitting next to you, so
Okay.
if you made a mistake, he could always take
So
over. you know. But to
okay.
do proper flying,
Yeah, but and then so you go from smaller I imagine from smaller planes to bigger planes.
yeah,
And
domestic internal,
Okay.
domestic Boeings and Airbus 320s, then you go
Okay.
onto the international, onto jumbos. I waited
Yeah.
until there was space for me on the Boeing 747-400. Magnificent Queen in the Sky.
747, eh?
Yeah.
400, yeah.
I think Gary's got some
Yeah.
pictures here as well of
We've got pictures of the cockpit,
Yeah, let's have a look. What is that?
Yeah, that's an
Talk us
Airbus.
through
That's an Airbus 350 cockpit.
Okay.
That's what I retired flying.
Okay.
That is just the most magnificent, most intelligent flying machine in the world, and it's exactly the same as the Airbus 380. You know, the one that
Yeah.
Emirates have
Yes.
now, and a lot of airlines around the world. You see, it has the little control sticks on either side, the little computer game stick.
Yes, a
That's what they
joystick.
call the fly-by-wire airplane.
Okay, so there's
So that-
not like pull
No.
up that stick. It's like
So there's no mechanics in that thing. It goes in. That stick
Yeah.
talks to the. I'm talking
Computer.
layman terms now.
Yeah.
So it talks to the computer. The computer decides how much deflection to put on the ailerons or elevator.
okay.
So the airplane's going fast. It knows not to put too much.
Okay.
And also, if you're going too slowly and the airplane doesn't have energy, it won't allow you to stall it.
Yeah.
It won't allow you to lift the nose up too high in case you're going to stall it in normal law. If it's in,
Yes.
if everything is working perfectly.
Yeah.
So Wallo, let me understand this from a layman's point of view. And I come from the man who sits behind you, or the person who sits behind you. The passenger, in other words. Is every single button in that cockpit key to making sure that that plane flies?
Absolutely. And the pilots know what every single button does there. I used to know what voltage every system was,
Yeah.
what the hydraulic pressure was, what the pneumatic pressure was, what altitude the cabin had to be at certain altitudes in the cruise. But it was so clever that it would tell you first if there was something wrong. So in that middle panel, you see there's 2 screens in the middle.
Yeah.
You would get a warning on that. Say if you had a hydraulic low pressure on one of the 5 systems, it would give you an audio warning.
Yeah.
A red warning means that you must do something immediately to rectify it. A yellow warning was a caution. That means you've got some time to read through the procedures.
Okay.
And a white warning is there is something wrong, but you don't have to do it right now.
Oh, okay.
And Neil, am I right in saying that prior to that plane taking off, or prior to you taking off, you plug all that stuff or information into a computer?
Yeah, you see you've got 2, one either side.
Yes.
So the co-pilot can do it. But that one is, you could move those systems around electronically.
I mean,
but previously, and you'll see on the 400, if we bring that up now, there are 2 separate computers. You see both sides. There's a computer both sides.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that the 400? Yeah. That little green screen.
That's a Boeing 747-400.
That's a Boeing 747-400.
Okay.
Now that has mechanical controls that are joined to each other that are assisted with hydraulics to move the.
So that's actually still
you push it forward, both of them go forward.
Yeah. So it's actually it's not computerized. It's not completely computerized. You can still pull that.
No, sure.
You can pull that yoke then.
Yeah.
And the same with the Airbus.
Airbus are separate. It's a very complex system.
You've each got a computer. You can the captain and the co-pilot.
You see those 2 little green screens there?
Yes.
That's an FMGC, flight management guidance computer. So you'd put all your weights, your speeds, your flight plan, everything into that computer, and that would show you up on that. You see that big screen with the most black screen with a line on it? That's your nav display. So that nav display will show you your route. En route all the way to Joburg, New York, and the radar system will also be superimposed onto that screen.
Yes.
So while you're flying at cruise altitude, it'll show you where the thunderstorms are.
Okay.
And then
so you can avoid if you need to.
You have to avoid,
So who then avoids it? Autopilot or you?
No, you do.
So you
that's why
disengage autopilot.
One night sleeping, and otherher's looking at that over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, now I want to hear some stories about when things went wrong.
No, just before we get there, because I'm also very intrigued to hear those. I just need to understand this. So the Airbus, you get in there before you start up. You put the information into a computer. Does the captain do it, or the co-pilot do it, or do you both do it?
Depends whose leg it is. So I do, say, Joburg to Frankfurt, and he does Frankfurt back to Joburg, or other way. You decide.
So one of you do it.
One of you do it.
Yeah.
But
he checks.
Both check it before take off.
And then, just as a matter of interest, and again from a layman's point of view, what does that computer actually tell you? Does that what you've put in there is what it's going to deliver?
Absolutely.
But I mean, well, the thing we're saying there also is that the Airbus there's no more mechanical in that thing. That's all computer thing. So fly by wire. That means that there's no control really.
Great point.
You've got control, but if something goes wrong, hydraulics go wrong.
There's so many backup systems.
Is it a million?
Systems, you'll never lose all your hydraulic systems.
Is it okay?
No.
So can you override that as the pilot? Can you override that and manually rectify what you put into the computer?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
you just retype it in. If you want to have a route change or if you want to avoid a thunderstorm in front of you, you can override it with the flight control unit, which is above all the instruments.
Yeah.
So that's where the autopilot button is as well. So once you engage the autopilot when you're in the air, it automatically links to the computer. So wherever you program that airplane to go to,
it's going.
That autopilot says, "Okay, guys, climb to 35,000 feet," and the computer will tell you if you're too heavy, if you've got too much fuel to take them from Joburg to New York, and you've got 160 tons of gas on board, and you can't just climb up to the highest cruising altitude because it's too heavy. And the airplane will give you the optimum altitude to climb to.
So it tells you
you're monitoring that all the time.
Also, your biggest fuel saving, or that sort of stuff is all built in because they need to make money in the end.
Correct.
And also, so in these joystick. I mean, when we're working on computers here at home, I mean, stuff goes wrong all the time with this.
Sure.
It's like stuff crashes and.
But there's so many computers in those airplanes, backup computers.
The backup stuff.
Yeah.
You can still, even if you don't have that or whatever, there's backup procedures that you can use.
Wasn't there an incident with Air France in at an air show in Paris.
Yes. That was right in the infant stages. In fact,
Correct.
it was
I
one of the
vaguely remember
prototypes. Yeah. Look, to explain to you exactly what happened, there will be so scientific that we're going to lose most.
But
of
in
it.
a
Yeah.
nutshell, the
Well, let's have a look at
Incorrectly.
some of these things. Keith's sending us lots of stories here.
It went.
yeah, hold on.
It went into ground mode, so it thought it was landing, and it didn't take thrust when the speed came down, and that's why you could hear it, the engines spooling up, and then it hit those trees. That was the prototype.
That's right.
Airbus
Yeah.
320.
On the approach to the runway.
Yeah.
But was that now not as a result of the pilot, so to speak, putting in
He didn't know the
cuck
system.
information?
He didn't know the system that when you get below a certain altitude, close to
there
the
you
runway,
go.
it goes into
There-
ground
there's
mode.
a-
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was in a different mode, and he
Didn't know that. He thought that it was going to kick in power and go wrong.
Shit,
But I mean,
amazing.
that's
It's
in a
always
nutshell.
always said to be a perfect storm of things. I think he's saying, tells some story about Sol Island. What's Sol Island?
Ilha de Sol is a Cape Verde island.
landed there.
And
Wow.
we used to stop there with the Boeing 747 en route to New York or Atlanta.
747 is a big enough airport there.
That
In
was huge.
London.
And you know
Okay.
who built it? Marion Roberts.
No,
Yeah, they built
okay.
it, yeah, because we couldn't fly around the bulge. We had to fly around the bulge of Africa
Okay.
during the dark eras.
Yes,
Nobody
yes.
let us fly over Africa.
Oh,
so,
right, okay.
And
Gee,
then going
so
to
they really,
America.
at that time, they wouldn't let you fly
I've been
over
there.
Africa either.
It
No,
smells
no,
like a
not
fish
at all.
factory.
Yo.
And
And
it
you-
cost us so much. No, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, but we
Wow.
landed there in
Sol.
the early hours of the morning. Ilha de Sol, when you walked over, it smelled like a fish factory.
Kim van der Riet says, check with
Kimbo.
Neil. He says whether a mask can be worn during flying.
No, well, that's what ended my career when COVID came about.
Oh, really?
I did the second last flight out of New York on an Airbus 350, and they said, "Go home, we'll call you," and they never did.
Oh, really?
And I was 2 years premature to retirement. I was
Wow.
61 then,
Of course.
and so I lost the
And it
last
was
2
COVID.
years of my career. They gave me
Yes.
a package,
Through
pension.
COVID.
But sorry, just to remind me, what is Kimbo on there about a mask? Were
No,
you
that's-
there when
that's what
COVID
you're
broke?
saying. Yeah.
I was in Manhattan when COVID broke, and they chased everybody out of Manhattan while we were there.
Yeah.
They started down in the business district at the bottom of Manhattan.
Yeah.
We were in the hotel, and they put cops all along the roads in their vehicles, and all we heard was, "Go home! We are closing down the city. Go home!"
Really?
Yeah, and they moved
Wow.
from south to north in Manhattan, and they cleaned the place up.
Wow.
We got into the bus the next morning, got to JFK, and it was chaos because
I
everybody
can
was
imagine. Jeez, Neil.
We had to put
Oh, you had a plane at least.
Imagine if
Yeah,
you could have
I had a
documented
seat.
this on a video of some sort.
Yo,
Yeah.
we put people on the roof racks to bring them out.
It's like
And
Kabul.
it was hectic. Every seat was occupied
Jeez, like.
to leave New York.
Yeah,
325
What an
passengers.
interesting life, Neil.
Yeah.
But
So-
Keith was talking about Sol Island. We used to land there at 2 o'clock in the morning and then leave the following night at 3 o'clock. So we'd have 25 hours at Sol.
Okay.
So we'd stop at the airport restaurant and buy those cerveja, little bottles of cerveja.
Yeah.
And we'd go straight to the hotel. They had this beautiful pub right on the beach.
Lovely.
In fact, I think my kids are watching.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time.
Yeah,
there.
there's
And
one.
the sea was beautiful. There was very good
Yeah.
fishing. Gee, we
Yeah,
had
no, I can imagine.
wahoo and dorado and all sorts of game fish there, and the scuba diving was very good.
Okay.
But we'd have one hell of a party and leave stinking of garlic because their seared tuna was the best in the
Yeah,
world.
no, I can imagine.
And their prawns and crayfish. So we had tremendous time. Sometimes we spent 3 days at Sol,
Yeah, gee, it was lovely.
and we loved it. Yeah.
So you, how many kids? 2 kids? Is
Yeah.
it? And how old are they now?
Sarah and Mark. Yeah, Sarah's 30 with 3 kids.
30 already?
Yeah, and Mark's 26.
Wonderful.
He lives in PE.
Okay,
The
okay.
PE boy as well.
There's it.
Works
I
for
like
S4.
Not kind of mask, the ugly mask. He said.
Oh, the ugly mask. Yeah.
What's the ugly
We
mask?
did-
Casey said it.
We did the jam jar really together. Kim van der Riet.
Oh, right.
Myself.
What a
Okay.
character he is.
I had an ugly mask, and the next day after jam jar, I climbed on an Airbus 340 and I went to London where I wore my mask in the cockpit.
I was like one of those.
Yeah,
oh,
big.
yeah,
No, ugly mask. Look, yeah,
yeah. Classic. John Jackson and Garth Wright. Is it Garth White or Garth Wright? Must be Garth Wright.
yeah, I know. Garth White, yeah. Yeah.
Garth White.
Yeah.
Who are those guys now?
No,
Those-
John Jackson. I know Garth White. He was in SA. He was one of the senior guys.
Okay, okay. All right. Oh, that's the SAA guys. Do you know Peter Mayer here as well?
Yes, Pete's here. I think he's still flying. I think he flies on contract. And
he does.
Hello, Luck. Jeez, you're busy tonight, my boy.
Prior Prawns. That's where Peter Mayer is now as well. Keith says, there was also about...
He's very busy tonight. Casey, hello, my boy.
Yeah, he's busy. And John Wallens says, ask Neil about his crab catching.
Well, that's our Kenton on sea.
Kenton?
No, Kenton. We've been going to Kenton since 1965. No?
Yeah.
But my new dear wife Diane and I used to go up and spend nights on the river in a cabin cruiser and catch crabs.
Yes.
The mud crabs. Yeah?
Yes, it's beautiful.
You get a little stocking and put some sardines in it and drop it overboard.
Is that how
and you wait until this thing grabs hold of the stocking and you slowly pull it up.
Well, it doesn't know.
Come along with a big scoop net, and then we had this mother of a crab. The first time I took her up the river, she's going to kill me for telling the story. We had been dating for about 6 months.
Yeah.
So in 2015. I said to her, and I told her about these crabs, these big mud crabs. You know, the carapace is that size, the nipper's about this size. So I put on my rubber duck. We went up pretty close to Gibbet Horns, up the hills up the river.
Yeah.
So I tied onto a tree and I threw the bait out. And I said to her, there's something on here. There's a crab on there. And I pulled it up slowly and I took the net myself and I hooked this crab and I threw it onto the deck of the boat. But there was this mother of a crab. But I didn't know that she was arachnophobic. She pirouetted around the pontoons of that boat.
Don't like spiders.
Get that thing off the boat.
It looks like a spider.
No, we're going to eat that thing later.
Yeah, they're delicious, eh?
They're delicious. No, make a crab curry over that.
Sorry, just to move on. As Gino was saying earlier, let's get on to this, some of the juicy stuff here. I say juicy stuff. I don't want to sound...
the Air France crashing in the sea.
Yeah. Let's start with MH370 because that's fascinated the world for many, many years.
Oh, right, the 375.
I mean, how many years is it now, Neil?
It was 2014 they made 370.
10 years.
What's your theory?
Okay, human beings have two things.
Yeah.
A poo-pole and an opinion.
Three things. A thirst as well.
And a thirst, yeah.
I'm going to get it. Do you want a drink? I'll quickly go while you give you a little analogy about what human beings are.
Okay.
Do you want another one?
But
I've got some here as well.
But remember, this is my opinion, and I've done a lot of reading on it. And we obviously in the training section at SA we thrashed it to death. What could have happened?
Coming now.
Yeah.
And first of all, it's never been proven what happened or where that aeroplane actually is. Got a pretty good idea of where it is.
Okay.
But what actually happened, we'll never know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look into the crew, for instance, that captain, I forget his name, Sahi or something like that. He was. They said that he was suffering from depression for whatever that's got to do with it. He was also big mates with the opposition party leader.
Oh.
The opposition party leader was arrested and sentenced. It was sentenced to prison the day before the incident happened.
Wow.
He also lived on Penang Island.
Yeah.
The captain of that aeroplane, right? They also went into his house after the incident, and they found a flight computer in there that had exactly the same track as that aeroplane carried out after the incident. So what my opinion and what I've read, and you must formulate an opinion.
Yeah.
He took off, and 38 minutes after takeoff, someone. Who else but him turned off the transponder? Yeah, because the radar couldn't see.
That's not a normal thing. You're not allowed to do that.
No, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But Inmarsat is the satellite company that sends up transmissions, and you can read up about Inmarsat.
Okay.
So apart from the fact that the radar systems in Malaysia and the next airspace that he went to couldn't see him anymore, they could still track a bleep on the screen. And they tracked him turning around, going over Penang Island. Hello.
Yeah. Was that where he was born?
That's where he was living.
Okay.
He went over, so now instead of going from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, he suddenly
going over Penang.
So he made almost 180-degree turning. He went to Penang, and then he headed out towards India. And then they plotted him for another couple of hours, and he had 7 hours of endurance, of fuel on board.
Yeah.
Boeing 777.
It's a big
So
plane.
what they think he did was to depressurize the airplane, put an oxygen mask on, depressurize the airplane, kills everybody on board.
Jesus.
So he must have made sure that the co-pilot, and it was a training flight, so he was a training captain, the co-pilot was a student.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe he told him, listen, let's make some coffee.
Yeah.
Something like
Send
that.
him
As soon
off.
as he got out, he locked the door, depressurized the airplane, turned the transponder off, depressurized the airplane. Everybody was dead within half an hour. And then he took his flight, went over his island that he was born in, and also the area where the aircraft, they think the aircraft crashed, is the deepest and most rugged seabed in the world. Big mountains, valleys, and things like
And
that.
as you said, when I was doing my duty here, bringing the beers, he basically had this whole route plotted out.
He had plotted it.
I remember that.
Premeditated.
But wasn't he deemed to
Suicide
be
murder.
sound?
Oh, well, they didn't know. They said he was depressed, and he had this mate who was the opposition leader of the. He was sentenced to jail the day before. The most expensive air sea search in the world, $180 million they spent looking for that airplane, and then they found the flaperon, which is between the flaps and the aileron on the trailing edge of the Boeing 777
At
on
Reunion.
Reunion Island. Yeah.
Gee, was
And they matched up.
drifted.
So it is there somewhere between Perth and Africa.
Yeah, somewhere.
It's a small little haystack.
Yeah.
that.
What about you as far as bad weather goes? Have you had any scary situations?
Oh, hell yes.
Is it?
But I mean,
because I always think of like the flipping, the jolting, the turbulence and stuff. I mean, what kind of turbulence have you?
we had a very interesting one. In fact, my darling wife Diane was sitting in the back.
Yeah.
She used to fly with me once a month
Oh,
on a seat available basis. I don't think
Okay,
that that's
yes.
why you say we went bankrupt, because the pilots were taking us.
Yes.
It's only with them. So all I had to do was pay airport tax, and then she could get
Okay.
onto the airplane if there was a seat available.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were going, I'm not sure where we were going. We were airborne out of Joburg, big thunderstorms all around Joburg.
Yeah.
And I was maneuvering the aircraft between these thunderstorms, and next minute there was this halo. It was like a silver ring in front of the airplane, but just in front of the nose of the airplane.
Yeah.
And I said to my first officer, I said, look, I've never seen one of these before. And next minute it went, and it was like a shock around electric
Gee, was
current or whatever it was. We have no idea what
lightning
it
or
was.
something.
And it hit the side of the radar dome.
Yeah.
So immediately and it made such a bang. And
Yeah.
Diane said the passengers sat up in the airplane and their eyes were like this. But we went through all the systems, and we spoke to the guys on the ground, because you got that ACAR system which transmits any problems with the airplane straight down to our base in Joburg.
So they can
And
analyze.
they analysed it. They said there are no depressurization.
And was this soon
problems.
after takeoff?
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
the altitude
20 minutes.
we
We must have been about 25,000 feet.
Geez, like
20,000
it's probably
feet.
like lightning or something.
It wasn't lightning. But there must have been magnetic
Ah,
voltage or charge between the two thunderstorms.
clouds or something. Yeah.
And it
Okay.
was just this funny occurrence. I've never seen it. I never saw it again. I never saw it.
And
Never
bad
seen it
weather
before.
wise, I mean.
And you know what? Bad weather. No guy in his right mind goes through a thunderstorm.
Really, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's
I mean, a
not
thunderstorm is on your nav display on the screen, on
Okay.
the cockpit. You can see it a mile away.
Mm.
But let's go to that Air France, that question.
Yes,
See.
Jesus, that's another one that
So now he was
fascinating.
going from Rio to Paris.
Yeah.
He was in the middle of the ocean. There was a very inexperienced co-pilot,
Yeah.
come in-flight relief pilot, plus a co-pilot, plus the captain.
Yeah.
They'd already spent 3 hours in the air.
Yeah.
Now, also an opinion, eh?
Yeah.
I've also done a lot of research, and we also thrashed it to death at SA in the training section.
Yeah.
Why did this guy mess up the stall recovery so badly?
Yes.
Okay.
Fly-by-wire aeroplane. first
Okay.
of all.
Yeah.
Right. They were cruising along 3 hours into the flight. So you've got 3 pilots on a long distance flight, a 12-hour flight like that. So you split the flight up in 3.
Okay.
So one pilot at any one time goes and sleeps in the bunk.
Yeah.
You got a nice duvet and you try and put earplugs in and go to sleep. They'd just done a crew change and the captain went into the bunk. My opinion is that they flew into a storm.
Okay.
It is very easy on that old Airbus 330-200 series to not have the radar dome on, and if you have it in the central position,
Yeah.
there's just no return on the screen.
Okay.
And it doesn't show you the tilt of the radar,
Oh,
of the
right.
radar dish.
Okay.
So hang on a
So-
sec, Wallo, hang on a sec.
So
You say it's very easy not to have it on.
Yeah, so he might not have.
What does the rule book say?
Before you take off, you must turn it on.
Okay.
And then and they brought in procedures after that, so to verify.
Yes.
Also, the biggest problem with pilots is just how you handle a distraction. I always say to the guys, how do you tell who's a good pilot and who's a bad pilot? We're all good pilots. The best pilot is one who can handle a severe distraction the best out of the other guys. So a severe problem, maybe an engine fire or hydraulic problem or something like that. So your whole focus is on that. But you must still be able to
check the other stuff.
Put that there and still fly the airplane.
Yeah.
If you don't fly the airplane, it's going to crash.
Yes.
So don't put all your energy into that issue.
Yeah.
So now, let's sketch a scenario.
Okay.
So the captain goes to the bunk.
Yeah.
The pretty Mamazelle walks into the cockpit. His radar's off. He hasn't seen that he's approaching a thunderstorm. The two of them, their feathers up, and they're sitting talking to this Mamazelle. I might see you the next flight or whatever.
Yeah.
Bang.
Checking the garage.
I don't know.
Into the storm.
There's no reference to anybody in that cockpit apart from the two of them.
Okay.
There were a lot of thunderstorms in the area. It was in the middle of the intertropical convergence zone.
Yes, correct.
And they had severe icing, various other things. It disengaged the autopilot, disengaged the auto thrust. It went into alternate law. Now, I won't even go there because that's a lecture that will take me a whole day.
Okay.
The first officer decided, no, he held the stick fully back, got the nose way up, because I think that he was so distracted by the noise of the autopilot going out and the auto thrust and the icing and so on. And then his scan was poor, so he couldn't see where the horizon was. He was looking at airspeed and pulled the aircraft nose way up, and it started stalling. But if you take the other control and you push it the other way in opposite directions, they neutralize each other. So nothing will happen to their
Yes.
And it only took 3.5 minutes. So this thing it climbed to max altitude. In fact, I think it went 1,000 feet above max altitude. It went to 38,000 feet. It was in such a deep stall. They had full thrust on, and the speed came down. It was a deep stall, and 3.5 minutes at 12,000 feet a minute, they hit the sea.
Wow.
But, sorry, just to get that right, did the pilots not think, am I right in saying the pilots thought they were climbing? Or the machine was sitting there?
No, they were stalling.
They were, but they were getting a reverse reading, were they not?
I think there was a too inexperienced guy that was on the controls, and the guy that was more experienced should have been more assertive. And you've got a priority left button that you push on the controls, and it takes his inputs out of the system altogether.
Okay.
He should have. The more experienced guy should have said,
Should have taken
"I have control. Push that button." And then we changed the whole stall procedure in Airbus worldwide after that.
I'm sure.
So it was.
Now tell me now, because I'm going to get to that question now, Gary, but just for people who are scared of flying, because my wife hates flying, Philippa hates flying, she doesn't want to fly, but and she's always nervous when she does. What can you say to people who are nervous of flying? What's what are all the things that are put into place so that things don't go wrong?
As Gavin Cowley said to me this afternoon, when you land, these I say to you, the safest part of your journey is now over. Drive safely on your way home.
I think if you look at the number of passengers that fly worldwide, the number of takeoffs, the number of landings versus the number of takeoffs and non-landings, successful landings, it's a calculated risk. You've got more chance of being.
But I mean, you look at a small plane or a big plane. What's safest to be in?
No, hang on. You get a single engine airplane. That fan stops.
Yeah.
It goes down and starts sweating, and then the next thing you do is bleed.
Hit the ground.
Yeah. So you have to.
But can't you glide?
You can glide.
You glide in the other plane as well.
As an airline pilot, what is the most, if the right word is treacherous, part of that flight? Is it the takeoff, the landing, or both, or nothing?
Yeah, it's usually the landing.
And
I tell you what, it's a whole lot of different things that make it more treacherous. You take a primary crew that flies. Okay, let's sketch a scenario. Johannesburg to Frankfurt in Northern Hemisphere winter.
Yes.
So you fly, you've got 3-man crew, you're flying an 11-hour flight. By the time you get to Frankfurt, it's fog bound. There's zero visibility. And it's freezing cold, it's icing conditions, there's slippery runways. They've just scraped the runway and put salt in it, and they give you a braking coefficient that it's okay, now it's fine to land. The three of you haven't slept the whole night properly. You might have had 1.5, 2 hours.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A guy who has sleep deprivation has as much coordination, judgment, timing, decision-making abilities as a guy who's had a whole lot of beer.
Yeah.
So now you get to destination and they throw this zero visibility in front of you and you must come and land.
Yeah.
So what are you actually landing on then? The ILS?
You land with the ILS coupled, what we call coupled ILS. It's coupled to the system. It takes you down and does an auto landing.
Yeah.
The ILS, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your listeners don't know what an ILS, instrument landing system.
Okay, yes.
The ground transmits 2 beams up into the air.
Okay,
So now when
straight
you see,
beams like that.
Now here's the thing. What slope do you think these airplanes coming into PE are flying at off the ground? 30 degrees?
I've got absolutely no
20,
idea.
20?
30 degrees, maybe 30 degrees.
I would not.
Coming down to land, 30 degree slope.
I'd say more.
Okay, 3 degrees.
Oh, wow.
3 degrees
3
from
degrees.
the touchdown zone markers up into the sky. It's a 3 degree path.
Jeez.
So you get a transmitter on the ground that transmits a vertical beam
3
and a
degrees.
horizontal beam.
Wow.
And then you've got a receiver on the airplane which you tune into the frequency of the ILS, and the airplane locks onto that vertical
beam.
into that beam, and then you engage the autopilot and it flies
takes
it
you right.
perfectly down that thing.
Okay.
Better than any pilot.
3 degrees.
But in PE,
So you're talking like this, or effectively.
Correct.
yeah, it's
There's
like-
0 degrees.
3 degrees.
It's next to
3
nothing.
degrees.
But when that thing comes over,
Yeah,
let's say the harbour, it's sitting at what, 600 feet?
800 feet.
800 feet.
Gee whiz.
And you've got, between the harbour, say, and the airport, you've got, say, what, 2 kilometres?
Yeah.
No, well, you intercept the slope at about 5 miles, 8 k's. Somewhere around, I forget now, it's 4 years since I flew.
Okay. So 3
Unbelievable
degrees,
they were.
they come in and that locks in. But now, obviously, you've got crosswinds, you've got things, and especially in PE, there's always a flip and the wind is hectic.
Okay, you've got very strict limits.
Yeah.
So if you're flying a Boeing 737-800, which Safir does very well, your limit would be 37 knot crosswind on a dry runway and 32 knots on a wet runway. Do not land over those limits, because if you go off the runway, they're going to...
Okay. And is it true that you say if they smack you down the runway, it's a good landing?
If it's covered in water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
You don't want a hydroplane.
Okay, so you want to smack until they
break
they
that
clap
surface
it down.
friction on the water.
So that's the reason why when you get a heavy landing, usually it's because I just want to get it down, bang, and be safe.
But also, as soon as you compress the oleos of the wheels, it tells the airplane's computers you're now on the ground.
Okay.
And then it throws those spoilers up on the wings.
Okay.
As you touch down, you'll see those spoilers come
Yes.
up. And
This is fascinating
kills
shit.
the lift on the wings.
Okay.
And that makes it sit with all its
Sits
weight,
down.
and then the brakes are effective.
Well,
So you've got to have that bang. They should have a nice little bang.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's-
basically that gets sucked to the ground though. Which is
No, it's
where
all
you,
gravity sucks.
because what I've never been able to understand, and we spoke about it briefly on Friday, is how that thing, it looks so unbalanced and so gangly.
Yeah.
They're right up in the front of 2 little legs flying this thing.
Yeah.
Having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But how that thing actually adheres to the ground in these wet conditions.
Well,
You
it
think
just-
it's
it
going to
just-
slip all over the
No,
place?
it kills the lift.
Yeah.
And you've got serious anti-braking, anti-skid systems on the brakes.
Yeah. Okay, and I presume the whole ABS and everything else on that
Top
on
drawer
that plane.
stuff.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wallo, just briefly an opinion or thoughts on the Helderberg?
Okay. I don't want to dig too deeply into the Helderberg, but
No.
I'll give you the straight facts.
Yeah.
You don't have to at all if you don't want to, but it was a very South African thing that...
We have a pretty good idea of what was in there.
Mm.
Assumptions, opinions.
Yeah.
It got airborne out of Taipei en
Yes.
route to Mauritius.
Mm.
Just over an hour or so after takeoff,
Yeah.
it was a 747-200 combi,
Yeah.
which means that half of the passenger compartment was freight on the same level as the passengers.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they filled that freight up under the belly and in the back of the airplane.
Wow. Okay.
And an hour or two after takeoff, so they must have been somewhere just around Hong Kong, they experienced the cargo fire.
No, man.
Okay.
Yeah. So the cargo fire warning lights came on in the flight deck.
Okay.
Jeez.
Right. Flight engineer hauls out the procedure. Fire button number 1 or fire switch this, turn off that, press the fire extinguisher, boom, boom, boom. And the bottom line, it said there, land at the most suitable airport.
Yeah.
Which would have been Hong Kong. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Landed in Hong Kong. But
Yeah.
the captain didn't land there.
Uh-huh.
And they turned all the lights off with all the fire extinguishers, but now the fire extinguishers are done.
Okay.
They carried on flying for hours.
Does
and
that?
somewhere
Yeah, I beg your pardon.
somewhere between Thailand and Mauritius,
Yeah.
the fire warning came back.
Okay.
But they were overhead in Air Force Base, the Diego Garcia USAF Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
which
they were
was
told-
another theory, was it not?
What's Diego
Yeah.
Garcia?
American.
It's an island in the middle of the...
American Air Force Base.
Yes.
Massive American base.
So this thing, the fire started again. They went in there with handheld fire extinguishers. People
Terrible.
did huge inhalation. The bottom line is the airplane burnt in half, flooded down into the sea, done.
Died.
You know, in 1990,
But that's all I want to say about it. Really.
yeah, in 1990, we were in Mauritius, and I went on a fishing charter, and one of the Creole guys said to me, he asked me where I was from, and I obviously said South Africa, and he said, oh, he told me the story about he was on the sea that night, and they saw this burning fireball.
Wow.
Drop into the sea.
Yeah.
Because they crashed into the sea quite close to Mauritius. Eh?
Off Grand
Okay.
Bay.
It was about 100 miles northeast of Mauritius. So they nearly made it.
Yo.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't have taken much longer.
And passengers in the air. Have you ever had difficult passengers or stories about passengers in the air?
We've had a couple of fights.
Did get
Yeah,
moor?
a couple of
Did
fights.
anybody moor you?
Yeah,
Lovely
we were
question.
coming out. I've got a couple of very good, funny stories.
Okay.
I must just choose my words carefully. We were coming out of Sao Paulo one day.
Yeah.
We were loaded.
Brazil.
A couple of two very strong South African men
Yeah.
arrived, full of juice.
Okay.
They came onto the airplane. They looked at their seats, economy seats. They looked at the business class seats.
Yeah.
Nee, wat ons gaan daar staan. Ons gaan daar sit. Cut a long story short. Some close combat flippin' policeman from Brazil
Bina.
came in there and threw a few punches, and in no time these oaks were squealing like banshees and they were thrown off the airplane. But I mean, we had a couple of fights on board.
Yeah.
One of our co-pilots was punched in the chest.
Really?
Well, Jan Eberson, he went and ran a gold and the comrades as well.
Jeez, like
But
Have
is
you
it
read-
your job now? Is it your job to sort that shit out?
No, no,
surely
no.
surely
No, no.
it's not your job.
Pilots may not leave the flight deck,
Mm.
but they made that rule later on. You know, you imagine the captain getting
No,
bashed
no.
to death. You know.
no, you can't do that.
No, we've had other interesting situations where male and female are sitting next to each other and they have a lot of champagne. And then they drink all the champagne and then they go to the toilet and they make a lot of noise.
Mile High Club.
So this is on
So it really happens on aeroplanes.
a flight of mine from Munich, and the cabin crew came and said to me, "Listen, this is what's just happened there." I said, "Well, look, it didn't hurt anybody." And so I thought I'd go back. I was just in the descent. They just finished their breakfast. Thought I'd go back and see what these two look like.
I'll do another loop.
So the one was about 38. The other one was about 35. The business people that are going to do some business in Johannesburg.
yeah.
Now I look at these two. The girl's looking out the window and the guy's looking into the airplane.
Oh dear.
They were not talking to each other.
Oh dear.
But then just before they got off the airplane, they exchanged the business card.
And Neil, just briefly, the impact of 9/11. You obviously.
Yeah. In fact, I was in New York the day before that.
Wow.
And my very good mate Paolo Mussolini and I were down in Greenwich Village. Oh, the most lovely spot of Manhattan, listening to blues music.
Yeah.
And we walked outside of a pub, and there were the old Twin Towers.
Still standing.
That was on the Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we left the next day to come home. And the day we arrived home,
After.
those two
Yo.
plugged into the Twin Towers. And then I went back there about 2 weeks after that to go and snuggled in there,
Horrendous.
Ground Zero. And you know, Di and I have been back there numerous
Okay.
times.
But
Ground Zero.
the impact or effect on flying,
No, it
Yeah.
was huge.
massive.
You know, everything changed after that.
Yes.
Locked door policy.
Yeah.
No, it was crazy. The security around airports was
And
hectic.
did you as a pilot start shitting yourself then? Because
No,
I mean,
doesn't happen to me. Doesn't it happen to us?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, I mean,
I'll never forget, I went to Sears, was my famous shop, my favorite shop in New York, Sears, and I bought a chainsaw because the chainsaws were on special. They were $99 instead of $100.
How are you going to bring it up?
what did you?
So I remember it was just after 9/11, and there was this huge queue outside JFK entrance.
You see with a
because
chainsaw.
So a huge queue of passengers because they were being screened so thoroughly, and I'm carrying the chainsaw, and I heard one of the passengers turn around and said, "Oh my God, look, the pilots are carrying chainsaws to self-defense."
But, sorry, my question was more based on your fear as a pilot. Because there were a lot of threats about planes being blown up and
No,
so
hijacked and
Yeah,
stuff.
but there were only 4. In fact, I still think there's a opinion once again.
Yeah.
There was no footage of that Pentagon airplane hitting the Pentagon. I never saw any of that.
Correct.
Yeah,
But we won't go there because
Yeah,
there will be
100%.
somebody that will say, yes, there was an engine or whatever.
Correct.
yeah.
I agree.
But-
Any time that you had to make split-second decisions, and like the emergency times.
No.
It's a
I mean,
clean record.
I retired with 23,500 flying hours.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you how many flying hours. 23,500.
Oh, that's a lot.
3,500 as an instructor.
Yeah. Well, Neil, I think I mean, we're at the end here, so we got to wrap it up now. And I think Alan, Gary's checking some questions here. The most exciting or adrenaline-inducing thing that you've done? Because it sounds like you're not scared to do much.
Chapter here. Come,
you're not
carry
scared
on.
to do much. So, is there anything that you're adrenaline junkie?
I jumped off a mountain in Engelberg in Switzerland with a parachute.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Like a base
You
jumping?
don't jump out of an airplane that works. So we went to a course in Switzerland, and
Okay.
they
Base
taught-
jumping?
They taught, well, it was 3,000 feet above the valley at the bottom.
Wow.
But those shoots in those days, that was 1990, they didn't have much airborne time.
Yeah.
We decided on a 10-day Zurich flight, we'll go and do a paragliding course. Ridiculous.
Why were you never swayed to get into aerobatics? Or were you swayed?
No, it's too dangerous.
Quite a lot of your mates.
A lot of guys were killed in it, yeah.
A lot of SAA guys.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, so you, parachuting, so you start with a full parachute open already.
Well, that's the beauty of
paragliding.
it, is that you put the chute up
Full,
behind
and
you,
the wind takes.
pull the risers, and you see that the thing's up, all
Yes.
the risers are good, and you run down the hill.
I'm sure as a pilot you probably also know how that whole thing works.
Yeah, we were young and dummy.
And Wallo, so for the ordinary layman like me or us, for the oak in the back there behind you in the plane, he's quite safe, eh?
Okay, you must remember that I'm going to be sitting behind the controls of the airplane.
Yeah.
You're not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
No,
fair comment. That's what I want to hear.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've got
great.
a 2 billion rand airplane.
Great answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to look after me as,
You don't want to
as
die.
best as I can.
Yeah, for sure.
With all the training that I've had over the
Yeah.
31 years at SA and 11 years in the Air Force. And the second oak I'm not going to hurt is my guy, my friend sitting next to me.
Absolutely.
And the third in priority is that beautiful 2 billion rand airplane. And if
yeah.
you're sitting in the back, you're cool.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as Grant Dakin when he first got his private PPL. Nobody wanted to fly with him. And he phoned me up, we were living in East London, we were going to watch the Lions in 97.
Yeah.
And I knew Dakes didn't want to die. So I said, okay, Dakes, I'll fly with you. And off we went in his Cessna 210. He landed in East London, picked me up, off we went.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Dropped me off nicely on the Sunday afternoon with a terrible
Lovely.
bubbleless. But I knew he didn't want to die. But none of the OCMP wanted to fly with Dakes.
Yeah.
Dakin Airlines, as we called it. Hello, Dakes.
You know what, if I-
You'll
if
watch
I-
tomorrow.
Alex saying there was Neil part of the famous RSC Comrades Party crew.
You better believe it. But Alex, we know each other. I think I did 1 or 2 training runs with you.
Alex, great.
We
Right?
went to your restaurant in P and
He must have, because he was running
No,
those
yeah.
same comrades. Let's have a look at some of the others here. Is that David Howell? Any thoughts on the pilot Scully landing in the water in New York? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a great
that
question.
was the most
Jesus.
brilliantly executed emergency procedure ever.
Wow.
You know, they took him and put him in, he and his co-pilot, into a hotel, and they treated them like criminals.
Yeah.
And once it was all clear, they took his co-pilot, and their cabin crew, and they walked around the New York Yankee Stadium in uniform.
Wow.
Hang on. They treated
Yeah.
him like criminals.
Yeah, because they had to find the evidence that he didn't make a mistake, and that's what the accident board did. But
Shocking.
when it was all clear, They made them walk around in a lap of honor to 100,000 Americans. Standing ovation.
Check it out.
There's a Netflix.
I get goosebumps.
There's a Netflix thing on at the moment. I think it's what talks about it as well. The bird strike. The bird strike. Amazing.
Sully, what a magnificent execution.
Let's have a look. Dot saying interesting show. Yes, Dot. Oh no.
Hello, Pin.
There's my daughter, Sarah Ann Lamsey, my daughter. Those were the days.
Sarah Ann.
Yeah, Sarah and I took her.
Where are you now, Sarah? Are you overseas? Where is she?
Hello, Sarah.
She flew with me numerous times, just her and I. I remember taking her to London. She was 8 years old, and she was quite happy as an 8-year-old to walk with the passengers through passport control, and I must go with the pilots. And I got dropped on the other side, and I walked into arrivals, and there was my little 8-year-old.
Sorry, there's another question.
Times.
Where is she now?
She lives in Joburg.
In Joburg, okay.
3 beautiful grandkids. Okay.
What happens now
Lovely to have you on.
to you and the crew? We, the passengers, go through normal customs control. You guys subjected to the same?
Yes.
Through the same people we go through?
And it's worse coming back because they know that we come back often, and we've always got things in our bag, toys. You have to go and shop,
Sure.
Yes.
And the most toys wins.
Okay, so, but basically you don't have any special treatment?
No.
Okay.
No,
I see Wilfred saying brilliant movie. Yeah, that movie, I see it is on Netflix as well, about the Scully story. Great interview, thank you. Loving to hear Neil regale stories. Thanks, Dave. Barry Buchman is there.
Barry!
There's
your man. Hello, Barry.
So, but what does Barry
Big
do?
B.
Barry started Vape Right after he
Vape
also,
Right.
he also left SA at the same time. And,
Pilot.
Very good guy.
Yeah, lovely oak. I've known Barry since 1983, I think.
Okay.
Done very well for himself.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Barry. Jeffrey Collier, who's that? Thanks, Neil and Gents.
Another pilot.
And Daniels. Saying lekker stories, there we go. And Barbara Manor, of course, Barbara Manor is always.
Hello, Bobs.
Bobs is always around. Nice to have you on as well, Bobs. And I think we've come to the end of it now.
I can tell you one thing, all I must say to all the young guys that want to become a pilot.
Pilots, yes.
Wow, what a career.
Lekker.
Yeah, if I did over it again, I would do exactly
do the same thing.
Yeah, you can
it's such a magnificent career, and safe and fun and exciting, and it's awesome.
You could have a 10 handicap by the age of 58.
You could have all the best gear that you'll buy at Golf USA.
But Neil, thank you for coming on. It's been fantastic.
I'll tell you what, it's been a wonderful.
And I know there's a million more stories in here. We'll have to have you on
again. We'll do that with a blank screen.
I know there's a million other stories.
I would like to shake your hand.
No, thank you very
much. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
It's been fantastic.
It's been fantastic being with you.
And
thanks.
And thank you also to our sponsors, Spa. What a show! Thank you, Casey. We're going to get some Casey's punters again soon, I'm sure. Thank you to our sponsors, Spa, and to Sovereign and Fitch and Leeds as well for also helping us out. Next week I've got no idea what's on next week.
I would just like to say,
what it is now, but
I would just like to say
yes.
Thank you, Gracie. It's a first night
Fat Cats
for 6 months.
Yes, we've had some
and they were delicious
with Fat Cats. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gracie.
In fact, she catered our wedding.
She catered at your wedding as well.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Gracie. Delicious.
Oh, lekker. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Lekker. And don't forget the shows. 10th in St. Francis and the 23rd in East London. And then we're back at the German Club in PE on the 15th.
Thank you so much.
10th, there we go.
I'll put you on the
in St. Francis and East London there on the 23rd of Feb. Don't forget. And we'll see you next week. Cheers. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true.
Relax, sit down, coming out of PE town. Drink, find a shot, never mind your liver, get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle, have a Gino shot.
Gino shot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino spot.
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle, get to Gino's spot.